We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
Hello, and welcome once again to another day, another Tuesday of where we're going to be talking to you about regulations, where we're going to be breaking down some of these misnomers, some of these misunderstandings, and it's coming at a perfect time because we're talking about Facebook. We're talking about these institutions that have not been doing what they should be doing by us, the consumer. And it's really alarming. And it's great that Facebook has gotten themselves into a predicament where it actually allows for me, your Dress Down CEO, to elaborate and highlight some of the other regulatory issues that should be first and foremost that regulators, my apologies, should be taken care of. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tyrone Glover, and I am your Dress Down CEO of Leverage Credit Recovery. And it is, again, another Tuesday where we're out sharing, where we're out giving, where we're out educating individuals on these particulars, what you need to know about what's going on in our world, in our country, in our situations that might be preventing us from some of the understandings that we should be more or less getting from. And we're not. It's just that simple. It would be nice to know that our regulatory bodies are out there protecting us, but unfortunately, they are not. And it's really, really sad. We allow in this country institutions to get so large that when it's time to regulate them, it's actually too hard to regulate them because they're so big. And we allow them to have so much anonymity. That's not good. It's not good for us consumers because, again, look at them. Big, mammoth, behemoth understandings. And, of course, when there are these conflicts of interest, when there are these understandings that we as the public may see as, that's kind of questionable. But yet, investing in these understandings, which a lot, again, big people, large conglomerates probably already have, and that leaves us, the consumer, very, very vulnerable. So I got to thank Facebook for screwing up so massively. So thank you, Facebook. Appreciate you. Thank you. Now it's only going to allow for us who come out on a daily basis, on a regular basis, giving you some of these gold nuggets, giving you some of these highlighted understandings so that you, the consumer, can go back, sit down, and make educated understandings as to how you're going to navigate through. Now, I've said it many, many times. It's now time for us as people to get our situations under wraps. If we're not, we're only hurting ourselves. If you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're only hurting yourself. And the saddest part about it is that you're not alone. If you're a mom, if you're a dad, if you're an uncle, if you're an aunt, if you are a grandmother, a grandfather, if you are a neighbor, a relative, you have impact. You have impact on the youth around you. They follow you. They listen to you. They attempt to do as best as you do and without proper guidance. That's what regulatory bodies are. They're there to guide us. They're there to penalize us when we're not doing the right things. And unfortunately, in this country, are our regulators, are they protecting us? That's the question that I'm going to be asking you tonight. But before we get into that question for tonight, I need to make sure that everybody is chimed in. Are we all chimed in? If you're not chimed in, please do me a favor. Go grab that device that we always talk about all the time. Grab that device, find someone, send out a couple of invites to your nearest dearest. Send out some, please. Do me that favor. One person, send it out to one person, then ask that person to send it out to another person. So as we do it together, send that out. As I always say, send it out. Send it out. Let's get more people online. Let's get more people viewing these understandings, because I'm telling you now, if we do that, come whatever time frame that the Biden administration decides to free up, whatever it is that they're going to be freeing up, you're going to be in play. Let's be proactive versus being reactive. Proactive versus being reactive. I'm telling you, it's going to pay off. It's going to pay off significantly. The Build Back Better plan from Joe Biden, I added 2 more items to that. Build Back Better communities of color. That's what we need to do. We need to build back better communities of color. And those communities of color, they're going to need some financial elements to them. They're going to need some financial supports to them. They're going to need individuals like myself, individuals like my mentor, Dr. Yana B. Woodhouse. And if you folks have not, on Thursdays at this very same time, Dr. Yana B. is on her program, Access Wealth Nation, doing her thing, which everybody should be tuning in on that particular show as well, because I give you the credit. I give you some of the insights that you need to know about how that credit works and how you should be maintaining it, what credit cards or what secured cards, and how you should be monitoring your credit reports and how you should be looking at all of your data, because again, that data is what they're going to be looking at prior to them looking at you. And what Dr. Yana B does is she ties that all into that wonderful platform that you're going to need with insurance, with all of the regulatory understandings that she drives home when it comes to your investments, investing. I am so grateful to have partnered with this fantastic lady, and it's always a blessing to be able to express what she does along with what I do. And again, one-stop shop. Soul City Network has done it. They've literally sought out individuals who have a great understanding that we can deliver to individuals who look like us, and we're not beating around the bush any longer. It is serious. So if you have not, please start to chime in to Dr. Yana B. If you have not, please make sure that you have sent out the invites. I am live. Join in the conversation. There it is, live, joining the conversation. I'm posting it. There we go. I sent it out to my friends, and I hope that you folks equally are sending it out to your friends, because we're live. It's time to let individuals know that when are you going to? And as I stated, I'm addressing our regulatory bodies. I'm talking about those institutions. And if it were not for Facebook screwing up so massively, I still would be talking about the regulatory bodies, because we still have 3 institutions that equally, and this is the problem, when they get so big, too big to give a darn, and that's where we are. They're just too big to give a darn. So let's jump right on into it. Are our regulators, are they protecting us? And me personally, sorry to have to say this, but I don't think so. I wish I could honestly say they are. Good evening, Anthony. How are you, sir? I really wish I could say that they are protecting us. I really wish I could just reach out and say, oh my goodness, I'm so happy with what our regulators do, but they don't. They don't protect us. They actually do more harm to us. And we got to get better at it. We got to get better at understanding who are our friends and who are our foes. Okay, so there it is. Leverage credit recovery, yes or no? Are regulators protecting us? And right now, no, they're not. They're not. They're not doing the jobs that we want them to do. They're not doing the job. Just hands down, they're not doing it. And we have to start at some point to get our regulators to look into why is it that they're not. Is it that they don't have enough people? I don't believe that. I don't believe that they don't have enough people to do the jobs. I don't believe that. They could easily. Hey, regulators, I'm a teacher. You can hire me. You can hire me to do some oversight. I'll do some oversight for you. I promise. I'll do some oversight for you. All you got to do is pick up the phone, give me a call, send me an email. It's just that simple. I work in the school, and the schools themselves equally have some internal issues that, again, just drive people like myself, drive us crazy because it's so hard to understand something so simple seems to be so complex for those at the very top. It's mind-boggling. I've been in multiple industries, multiple institutions, and it's still, no matter where you go, you still are confronted with regulators who don't seem to understand what their scopes are as far as protection. Us consumers, protecting us consumers. When I heard what Facebook was getting away with after they bought Instagram, after they reviewed their data, after they had concrete information showing that what they were doing was questionable, but yet they still allowed for it. They still allowed for it. They still allowed for it. Not only did they take that to the next extreme, they ended up turning off or turning on, however that algorithm understanding works. They ended up turning on or turning off something that, again, allowed for misinformation to run rampant. Do you think that just started with Facebook? Of course it did not start with just Facebook. Of course not. This is greater and bigger than Facebook. So, as long as we have questionable regulations, we will never have proper oversight. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. As long as we have questionable regulation, we will never have proper oversight. And it's so hard to grasp or wrap my head around because there's no reason why we don't have proper oversight. There's no reason. It's the will to want to versus the will to not want to. And clearly, unfortunately, seems like our regulatory bodies do not. And it's not that they do not want to. Some individuals out there do a good job. And I'm not holding everybody. It's like I always constantly say to my students, I can't mass punish the whole class, but I can single out those individuals that I have to bring to the side and ask them, hey, what are you doing? And this is the same thing that our regulators should be doing to these businesses. But I'm going to surprise all of you with what my understanding is to how and why they get away with what they get away with. But let's take a look at this. 50 years of lies. 50 years of lies. Big tobacco lying for years. For years. And it's unthinkable that after such a great missed opportunity that they would still allow for companies to get so big and not even hold them accountable. Why? There's got to be some reason as to why. As I said, I've worked for about 15 different companies over my 29 years. 15 different companies. And it's alarming to have to say something like that. But again, this is how you get diverse. This is how you get an understanding of what's really going on. Fast foods, same thing. Regulatory bodies have to inspect. They have to check. Animal. Worked in a pet store for a number of years. Again, regulatory bodies have to come in and inspect. Unfortunately, they allow for internal inspections. And then, of course, as always, they do what most of us should not be doing, which is cooking the books, doctoring the books. And if we had regulatory bodies who would oversee in the manner in which they should, we would not have these horrendous situations ongoing. And the only reason why they're ongoing is because our regulatory bodies will not do what they're supposed to do. And there's another reason behind that as well. So I'm not going to just put it on them as well, but they should. They should carry the brunt of why things are the way they are. The conspiracies were discovered in November of 1998 as part of a master settlement agreement between the U.S. tobacco industry and various state agents, attorney generals. U.S. tobacco companies were compelled to publicly disclose approximately 40 million pages of previously confidential documents. And reason why they were confidential, because they did not want to disclose this. Our regulatory bodies have to fight for 50 years. 50 years to get something. And why? Why? This is the same thing that's going to happen with this this 9/11. My apologies, but this 016 investigation that's going on right now. This insurrection. It's going to take exactly the same amount of time because you either want to know the truth or you don't want to know the truth. And clearly, we got a party who doesn't want to know nothing about what took place on 1/6. And the same thing is here. We got too many high-profile individuals who sit in Congress, and I guarantee you, Congress, along with other individuals, why regulate when you have these individuals obviously investing in these companies? You're not going to regulate yourself. You're not going to do that. And this is why we have these problems, these concerns, these issues. Let's stop making them into, let me rephrase that, not a problem. It's a concern and it's an issue, but let's stop turning them into problems that are more or less swept under the rug. And the only reason why they're swept under the rug is because, again, as I stated, you will never regulate those you are profiteering from. Just that simple. So 50 years of big tobacco lying to us. But we're going to jump into why we're really here, which is to talk about the financial pieces, what regulatory bodies should be doing when it comes to the financial pieces. What and how are they protecting us in that space? So, companies are rarely held accountable for their abusive behavior due to fines and fees. Yes, due to fines and fees. I've talked about it plenty of times, and I think I'm going to bring it up next week where I'll bring more details into the bad debt deduction. The bad debt deduction is a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool if one understands how it is being used against us. And also, it's a powerful tool for us, the consumer. It works both ways. But the businesses clearly understand it because they benefit so much from it. And a fine or a fee. Fine and fee. That means it's a loss to your business. And clearly, if it's a loss to your business, guess what? And I left the 50-year lives of tobacco because I wanted you to really get an understanding as to what takes place here. Fines and fees. They pay fines and fees to the regulatory bodies. And what do those regulatory bodies do with that money? That's a great question that I need to have answered. So if we got senators listening, if we got congressmen listening, if we have anyone in our house, state houses or local houses or any bodies that really are desperate to find these questions, we need these questions asked on a number of bases. Everybody who visit their social media, ask those questions to our regulators. Where did this money go? Because clearly, if it went back into the economy, if it went back to people, then we should have better understandings. These companies should not be habitual abusers of certain practices, but yet they get away with it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And there's no way that anybody who's listening to me today could ever be able to go to their employer and make as many horrendous mistakes that these companies get away with. But yet you'd never see them really paying or losing out. They continue to gain. Perfect example of a financial failure, Wells Fargo. Well, if anybody here would have started opening accounts, that's a federal offense. You go to jail for that. But yet, have we heard of anybody going to jail? We've heard of the leadership at Wells Fargo passing the buck, saying, "Oh, it was our employees." Could not have been us. Oh, no, no way. Not us. We would have never given directives to do that. But they are. They are. They're doing it over and over and over and over and over and over. And I always say, too big to give a damn. Excuse my French, but that's not really a bad word. But they are. They're too big to care. They're too big to care. When you get that big, you start abusing your public trust that has been entrusted in you, because you know that you can just sweep it under the rug, get hit with a fine, and then get a nice little slap on the wrist, and everything's A-okay. Because you can turn right back around with the bad debt deduction, and you can write off your loss. Yes, that's why these companies never feel the damage of their abuse. They never feel it because, again, you get hit with a fine, they probably are laughing, cracking up. Oh, we just had to pay out $100 million. Oh, we just had to pay out another $50 million. Oh, we just had to pay out another $100 and something million. Oh, we just had to pay out another $100 and something million. But when you can turn right around and you can write it off, what have you really paid out? This is the problem that our regulatory bodies, that they continuously give too big to fail, too big to give a darn companies. And this is why they are habitual abusers. The number one reason right there. Too big to give a darn. So when you hit them with a fine or a fee, they know that they can turn right around, sweep it under the rug, and then pay the fine or a fee, and then turn right back around and then write off that fine and fee. Equally, while they themselves are investors in their own companies, Congress is investors in their own company. I bet you anything that there's a buku bunch of regulators, whether they be senators or congresswomen, whether they be mayors or state officials or local officials. I bet you anything in their portfolios. I bet you they have Instagram, or excuse me, not Instagram, but Facebook. I bet you they have Twitter. I bet you they have Google. Why? Because these are massive companies. So why wouldn't they have those as part of their portfolio? They have them in there, and it's a conflict of interest. How can you regulate somebody that you're technically making money off of? You're not going to regulate them in the manner in which you should. You're not. But what we have to reform is we have to reform the fact that these companies are writing their abuse off. They're writing the abuse that they do to us consumers on a daily basis. They get to turn around, they get to write it off. A company writes off their losses 4 times a year. You as a consumer, you only get to write off 1. And I'm a teacher, and I'm so appalled at the fact that the last individual that ran the White House, more or less, changed the whole tax laws on us teachers that week. $200. We can write off $200 just this year alone, and then we've only been in for 5 weeks. I've spent well over $200 easily. $200 covers just the pencils. Just the pencils, papers, markers, crayons, a variety of different scanning and copying of different items, a variety of different snacks and beverages and things that you equally want to have in the classroom. Again, you don't know what the circumstances of most. You do want to make sure that there are no allergies. So you're going to do the most conscientious understanding. You're going to ask mom and dad, are there this? Are there that? So that there are no issues. But yet in business, they don't care. They're not going to ask nobody nothing. They're not going to ask anything. They're going to get hit with a fine. They're going to get hit with a fee. And they're going to turn right around and say, oh, so sorry for that. Oh, we so apologize. Oh, we're so regretful for our actions. But then they turn right back around and they go out and do it again. How are you regretful for your actions when you turn around and do it again? You're not. You don't care. So here's some top examples of financial regulatory failures, why we need the Consumer Financial Protection Agency. Now, the CFPB is an agency that really looks after us consumers. Now, the CFPA, again, current banking and consumer protection regulators already have many of their powers that the Consumer Protection Agency, the Consumer Financial Protection Agency, which is all covered under the same umbrella, would be given, but they often haven't used their power. And why? Again, it goes right back to what I just said. Why? Why do they not use that power? Why? Why? Is it abusing their power? No. To do your job is not abusing your power. I can't go into school and kick my feet up and so I'm not teaching today. I just don't feel like today. I can't do that. Because if my principal walks around or if my vice principal walks around, they're going to look at me like, Mr. Glover, you with us today or what's going on? And they're not going to hold any grudge about doing that. They're going to ask me, hey, what's going on? Are you there? Because you got 15, 20, 25 students looking at you and they're wondering why you're not teaching. So the same exact thing. Got to use the power. But if you have the power and you're not using it, why? Explain to me why, regulators, you're not using your power. Moreover, consumer protection agencies for approximately 17 different consumer finance and fair lending statutes is fragmented amongst 7 different agencies, making consistent and effective efforts virtually impossible. Impossible. Why? Why would you have these regulatory bodies when you're already telling us that it's virtually impossible to enforce the regulations that you have given to these businesses? Why? Is it purposely? Did you do this to harm consumers? Did you do this to allow for businesses to make out hand over foot? There has to be some rationale behind why you did what you did. And all we want to do is find out why. So we can help you with the recouping of our losses and also the protection of us, the consumers. That's all we want. If you're a regulatory body, regulate. If you're a regulatory body, do your job. And if you can't do the job, you need to explain to us why you can't. Do you need more enforcement? Because clearly Congress is not going to do it. So we, the people, need to hold Congress accountable because they're also part of this whole collapsing situation that we have ongoing right now. Approximately 17 different consumer finance and fair lending statutes is fragmented amongst 7 different agencies, making consistent and effective enforcement virtually impossible. They never really wanted to protect us anyway, because if they did, this wouldn't be something that I'm reading to you right now. Different agencies making consistent and effective efforts virtually impossible. Again, I had to put that in there twice. Conflicts of interest at the agencies and a lack of regulatory will work against consumer enforcement. Conflict of interest. Just said it. That's what goes on in these agencies. Conflict of interest. Conflict of interest. If I'm heavily invested in Facebook, I clearly can't regulate them. If I'm heavily invested in Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian, I can't regulate them. Not that I can't, I won't regulate them. Because why? Kickback, kickback, kickback. And again, those companies get to turn right back around and they get to write off whatever fine or fee that they're being subjected to. Numerous actions and inactions by the Federal Banking Reserve has led to an encourage unfair practices. Let's read that one more time. Numerous actions and inactions by the federal banking regulators had led to or encouraged unfair practices, high prices for consumers, and less competition. Encouraged because they know exactly that these regulators are there to protect them and not to protect the consumers that these regulatory bodies were entrusted to do. Hold these companies accountable for their egregious and habitual abuses of us, the consumers. But why aren't they doing it? Conflict of interest, number one reason. Bad debt deduction, able to write off losses, number two reason. And below, we're going to go through a couple of these items that, again, might be surprising and shocking to you, because they're surprising and shocking to me. And I've been doing this for about 20 years now, and I'm still, every time that I run across something that is new from a different, industry, it's not really new because it's just, again, These are not new things. These are copycats doing the exact same thing. Copycats, 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 copycats. They're not doing anything new. But if our regulatory bodies were doing their jobs, we wouldn't have as many copycats out there abusing consumers. And here's a perfect example of a copycat. Your social security number. Why are we using that for all types of things when it's not even supposed to be used but for one thing only? And that's for the federal government to determine how much Social Security you're going to be getting. That's all that was used for. But yet copycatters have piggybacked off of it and said, well, by the way, we're going to use it for employment. We're going to use it for banking. We're going to use it for borrowing. We're going to use it for every known aspect of a consumer's life because we don't want to think of our own understanding that would benefit the consumer, that would help the consumer. So we're going to use that one thing that was not entitled or meant to be used in that manner. We're going to use that and we're going to exploit it. We're going to take full advantage of the Social Security number and we're going to make it our own. We're going to steal it and copycat it and just duplicate it throughout multiple industries because the consumers, they're not smart enough. They're not wise enough. They're not savvy enough to see what we're going to do. But this is what years and years and years and years of studying does. This is why we go to college. This is why we go to higher education. This is why we seek out professions where we can go in and get some experience. And this is where I am today. Experience, professional, truly understanding how our mechanisms do not work. They don't work for 70 to 80% of the population because of what I just said, conflict of interest. Look at our court systems. Lawyers don't go in to argue anymore. Lawyers go in to settle because most of the times the people that they're hanging out with are whom? The judges, the court clerks. They're so cushy with the courts that you can get law firms that will literally pass items through just by giving it to the clerks. Clerks run it up to the courts. Courts decide off on it, not reviewing, not looking at nothing. Again, another conflict of interest. That's why I tell everybody in a civil situation, don't go get a lawyer. Find a company like Leverage Credit Recovery. Find someone who is knee deep. Actually, let's take that back. Waist deep in these understandings. And have them help you out. Have them walk you through. Because there's a lot of things that, again, I got so smart during the Trump impeachments. I can't thank Jamie Raskin enough for all of the understanding that he just gave me in the smallest amount of time when it comes to adverse inference. I walked away with so much knowledge watching these horrible representations of law, meaning Trump's lawyers, get up there and embarrass themselves like I've never seen before. Even some of the briefs that they were bringing before the state courts and also before the Supreme Court, getting laughed out of the courtroom. That's what lawyers are today. They're jokes. Not all of them, again, not all of them. There are some great ones out there who do what we need them to do. And then there are the mass majority of them. Sorry to have to say this. Sad to have to say this. And if there's any lawyers out there that would like to come on and express their viewpoints as to whether or not they are doing the right thing, welcome you. Please, I welcome you. I want you on these types of programs because you should be defending against the habitual abusers that are out there making you look bad. I'm not making you look bad. I'm just highlighting your colleagues' failures. That's what I'm not doing. I'm not making you look bad. So I wish there would be somebody out there who, I can't believe. Yeah, I don't want you to believe. I don't want you to believe anything about me. I want you to believe what your colleagues are doing to your industry, not mine. Because my industry is going to be protected because it has individuals like myself who don't mind speaking up and speaking out to the abuses that our industry has created. The teaching industry is going to have a lot to answer for when Mr. Glover is in that position. And even today, I'm still asking those questions. Why do we have these failures? Why? I'm not scared. I'm not intimidated by no one. No one. Martin Luther King says, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. I fear no man. And I don't fear anyone. And that's why I'm going to continuously keep asking those questions of our elected officials, of our regulatory bodies, of our supervisors, managers, and all of those who are in these positions of authority that have been entrusted to protect us. I'm going to be asking you those questions. I'm going to be asking our news agencies. Morning Joe used to be one of my favorite shows to watch. Favorite. Then they went all cuckoo and crazy as soon as Biden got in. Oh, he's not doing this, and he's not doing that, and he's not doing this, and he's not doing that, and he's not doing this, and he's not doing that. Really? Really? Are you serious? Come on. Infighting with the Democrats. You're not fighting with the Republicans. You're infighting amongst yourselves. For what? For what? Cinema and Manchin, bye. Bye. It's only time frame. It's only amount of time. It's only amount of time. So, Democrats, get together, do what you got to do, make it happen for us people. Because if you, as elected officials, do not, I'm telling you, 22 is going to be something that you're not going to be expecting, even though most of the politicians are all saying, most of the pundits, most of the individuals who do the polls, they're all saying, oh, it always switches. Midterms always switches. The party that's not in power comes back in power for the midterms. Well, this midterms, that should not be the case. All right, this midterm, that should not be the case because we need to be setting ourselves up for 2024 so we can keep what we have. So we can keep what we already have put into play. If Build Back Better is going to be built back better, then it needs to be kept in that manner. It needs to be continued on. Doesn't need to have another party come in the midterms and snatch all of that goodness away. No, it needs to be kept. So we got some work to do, but let's keep it moving. All right, so the Federal Reserve Board ignored the growing mortgage crisis for 7 years after receiving congressional authority to enact anti-predatory mortgage lending rules in 1994. They ignored it. Why? Why would you ignore something when Congress said, hey, buddy, here you go. You have the authority. Please go ahead and enact it. Make sure that these banks aren't doing what they're doing to us consumers or to our consumers. Here you go. There. But why did they not? Because as I told you, conflict of interest, number one, and profiteering, number two. Why am I going to regulate those who are making money for me? Why? Why? Your duty is to do that. Your duty is to hold them accountable. Because if you do that, we don't get hurt. You're not going to get hurt. You might feel a little bit of pinch here, a little bit of pinch there. But again, you're invested, heavily invested. 70 to 80% of Blacks and Hispanics don't own mortgages, don't have mortgages. Why don't they have mortgages? Why? Because, again, how the system has been regulated to prevent those who could dearly help out the economy. But why? Why would you want to do that? Oh, it would help Blacks and Browns. Oh, it would help poor Anglo-Americans. Yes, I'm going to throw in those poor middle-class white folks because, as I said it before, for some strange reason, they think we're trying to take something from them. And lo and behold, not even nowhere near close, because Blacks and Browns, we work. We don't mind working. We work, but we want to be compensated fairly for our work. We want to stop giving you all of our God-given talents. So we don't mind working. We're going to do our part. But it would be nice if the opportunities that have been there for Anglo-Americans are equally there for Black and Brown. Because if they are, the economy grows. The economy grows. The situations get better and better and better and better and better when our regulatory bodies do what they need to do for all citizens. And unfortunately, you're not. There are two instances right there, tobacco and mortgages. Let's keep it moving. The Office of Comptroller of the Currency, OCC, engaged in an escalating pattern of preemptions of state laws that were designed to protect consumers from a variety of unfair banking practices and to quell the growing predatory mortgage crisis, culminating in its 2002 rules preempting both state laws and state enforcement of laws over national banking and their subsidiaries. So it was there to protect us. And they chose again not to. Why? When you invested, as I said, when you invested in these companies so that you forget what you're supposed to do, then you create the conflict of interest. And as I said it again, slap on the hand, little enforcement, a little fine. Well, let's take that back. It's not really a little fine, it's just a little enforcement when you should be doing major enforcement. I don't understand till today why in the world is Wells Fargo still a financial institution? I don't get it. It's beyond me. I don't get it today why Equifax is still a reporting agency. Why? Hundreds of millions of dollars in fines, been breached, $718 million settlement. But yet they are still have millions of consumers' information in their databases that they use to determine whether or not you are worthy of credit, home, jobs, insurance, whatever it may be that's tied to that understanding. I don't get it. I could never go and make a mistake nowhere near close to what these companies have done and still think that I'm going to keep my job. Every day when I go into the school, I'm always like, every time I get called, it's just like when you're in school, like a kid. Mr. Glover, to the office, please. That feeling inside you just goes up. And then you know good and well you haven't done anything, but still, it's just that feeling. And no one ever should be walking around with that feeling. Clearly, you know these CEOs. And I can tell you right now, Mark Zuckerberg ain't walking around with no feeling, because whether or not regulatory bodies decide to break them up, split them up, whatever it is that they're going to do with this company, doesn't really matter, because he's not worried about it. He's still going to make money. Still going to make money off of it, and consumers are still going to be harmed. 13 through 18-year-old girls are still going to be harmed. Garbage as far as misinformation is still going to be put out there. And this is not just Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Again, a lot of these social media platforms. I say one thing about Mitch McConnell, or I say one thing about Donald Trump, or I say one thing about something else. I never see my tweets. Never. I got over 79, almost 80,000 tweets. And you know how many of them have been addressed or answered by the people that I normally send them out to? 0. And what has that to do with? Algorithms. And what should our regulatory bodies be looking into? Algorithms. Because the algorithm determines what direction these companies are actually executing, or which direction they're going. And these algorithms are protected. They're proprietary. Oh, we can't share. No. Oh my God, no. That's intellectual property. We can't do that. But it abuses us consumers. So we should know, not we the consumers, but our regulatory bodies should know. And our regulatory bodies should not be able to invest in these companies in the manner in which they do. It's just that simple. Remove the conflict of interest, save the consumers. It's just that easy. Remove the conflict of interest, save the consumer. Don't remove the conflict of interest, guess what you have? More and more consumers being harmed. Don't remove the conflict of interest, guess what you have? More and more consumers being harmed by garbage products. All right, so as unfair credit card practices increased over the years, these agencies took little action except to propose greater disclosures until Congress stepped in. I mean, just think about that for a second. The only thing they said, well, you got to show us more about what your practices are. You already know what their practices are. I can go to every HR that regulates or that has had TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian all at Congress, spoken to their CEOs and grilled them for hours and grilled them. How come this? 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 Maxine Waters, one of her HR reports, literally highlighted so much information that, as I said, next week, we're going to be diving into those HR reports. We're going to be diving into the bad debt deduction, because I want you to see how these things tie in. And they tie in so beautifully, and you shouldn't be surprised any longer, which I'm not. I'm not surprised any longer. I'm more disappointed that we don't have the regulatory bodies doing what we need them to do to protect us, the consumers. They're just sweeping it under the rug. They're just sweeping it under the rug. They're just giving out that little bit of fine. They're just giving out that little bit of, oh, well, it's really not that serious. It might not be that serious to you, but it's deadly serious to the 330 plus million people in this country. And we know that a good 3, 4, I'm going to bring it as high as 5%, for them, it doesn't matter. They have everything that they need. They are protected beyond protection. But for us, the 70 to 80%, oh, this hits us too hard. And the best way to get the correction that you need, just the same way you do it to us. When you want us to correct a behavior, like for instance, you get a parking ticket, even though that meter might have been $2, they're still going to hit you with a $75 ticket for a $2 parking meter. Now, somebody please explain to me, where's the justification there? I don't mind paying 10% more. I don't mind paying, I would even pay 100% more of the same price the meter was. That would be $4. But who came up with this $75? Where? What individuals sat down and said, okay, if you're 1 minute over your time, that's $75. If you're 2 minutes over that time, that's $75. If you're 3 minutes over that time, that's $75. Who? They say judges now can levy the fines and fees. Who sat you guys down and said, okay, by the way, you're now bankers. You're now the budgeting committee that's now going to determine how much an infraction is. No, that's because, again, we've given so much of our authority to these one-person panels, our judges, that, again, conflict of interest. Conflict of interest. A judge should never, ever be able to hear a case that they are invested in. Sorry, judges, again, sorry. You should not choose that position if you're going to create the conflict of interest that I'm talking about. You shouldn't. No judge should be able to rule against Wells Fargo if you are in bed with Wells Fargo, if that is part of your investment portfolio. No judge should ever, nobody should ever be able to, again, think about what I'm saying. If you are that heavy into it, you got that much to lose, you should never be able to make any type of ruling or judgment on a company like that. Conflict of interest, sweeping it under the rug, fines and fees. This is why we have these mammoths, these monstrosities of companies getting away with bloody murder. Oh yes, murder. And we got to do something about it. We have to do better, my folks. And the reason why I do this every single Tuesday is to help us get better. All right. So the Federal Reserve has allowed debit card cash advances, overdraft loans without consent, contract, cost disclosures, or fair repayment terms. That's not hard to do. But if you don't want to, guess what you then do to us, the consumer? You put us in a predicament where we are left with the garbage that you leave there for us to have to deal with. And it's unfortunate for us. It is so unfortunate for us. It's actually, it makes me sick to my stomach to always have to constantly keep thinking about how our regulators get away with the nonsense that they get away with. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And if we don't stop it, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And we're going to be sitting there wondering, how do we get so deep into this mess? And it's going to start in two ways. We, the people, are going to have to understand what the Constitution is there and what it really actually says. It says we, the people. The preamble of the Constitution says we, the people. And if we don't know that by now, then we need to go back and read the Constitution and understand. It is just an example. It's a footprint. It's a model of what we should be doing, how we should be protecting ourselves. We, the people. Mitch McConnell has no power. Joe Manchin has no power. Christian Sinema has no power. They act on our understanding. And when they get that big to where they think, oh, I can hold up legislation, well, really, you can't hold up legislation, because all people got to do is stand up to these primarily Anglo greedy males, and we'll be able to actually move this American experiment in the direction of which our founding fathers more or less have thought. I refuse to go to another 50-year march on Washington of black men, and we have not moved the needle any further than where it was 50 years prior. I refuse. I will not attend another one. Now, I'll attend one that shows major progress. Law enforcement must find a way to get that over the next understanding. Health insurance, we must find a way to get that over the next understanding. Roe v. Wade, the multiple attacks that that's now seeing and going to be subjected to over the next course of our new Supreme Court as they begin their new term. Financial regulation, of course, as we always talk about, needs to be enacted. It needs to have some real footing. And if you can't, then as I tell everybody, if you can't do the job, quit. If you can't do the job, quit. This American experiment will not fail because of failures of individuals. It's only going to fail because we don't care enough. It's not going to fail because one bad apple or two bad apples or three bad apples. No, you can always get rid of the bad apples. It's going to fail because we don't care enough. I care enough. I care too much. And as a birth sign Cancer, as a understanding that what that means, the crabs, we're caregivers. We will give the shirt literally off our back. We'll go to great lengths to make sure that others are taken care of, others are protected and given all the benefits prior to ourselves. And that's something that I guess is inherent in that birth sign. But trust me when I tell you, what's equally inherent in that birth sign is that if you cross us, if you decide that you don't feel we're worthy of, then we'll turn on a dime. We'll cut you off. We'll cut you out like a cancer that you are. And we'll take it to that next level. That's where I am right now. Corporate America has not helped me. I'm going to be very frank with you. Very thankful to corporate America. All the positions that I've been able to hold throughout my time, from flight attendant to UPS driver to grocery worker to fast food worker to amusement park worker to teacher. Most of these positions were always managerial positions, so I was always in that upper tier. And the only reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now is because that upper tier showed me exactly what and how they abuse the individuals at the bottom. Abuse. Federal government still 725. 725. The federal government still at 725. So you think regulators care? The federal government itself doesn't even think that its citizens are worth more than 725. But yet they're making billions. We have companies that came from $1 million companies to now billion-dollar companies. And now these companies are now teetering, if not already exceeding past the $1 trillion mark. And in a pandemic, rich people have made hundreds of billions of dollars, but yet we don't have enough to do what? Now, if you folks didn't, and I hope you did, because I'm in the same time slot as Ari Melber, but Ari Melber did something that was amazing yesterday. He showed us that it is feasible, it is possible to pay for what we need to pay for. It's not about paying. Actually, it's not even about the cost. It's not even about the cost because they paid for many awards, many awards, and never even thought about not the cost at all. Both Dems and Republicans ran up that war chest, ran it all the way up, trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Didn't even think about it. But now that it comes to infrastructure and all of this that we're talking about today, this regulatory understanding that we're talking about today, it ties into the infrastructure. We need financial infrastructure reform. We need clearly public infrastructure reforms. Our roads are horrendous. Train systems, garbage, sewage systems. I can go on and on and on and on and on. I can't even think of enough disgusting words to constantly keep saying about our failing infrastructures. I'm in the process of wanting to purchase a home right now, but the price in the county in which I live, which is one of the richest counties in the nation, I'm more ashamed of the fact that if I did buy a home for $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, I'm going to have to put in another $300,000 to $400,000, $500,000 just to repair the infrastructure of a home that should have already been kept up. So it's not on me, it's on our regulatory bodies to do what they're supposed to do. And if they can't do the jobs by God's citizens in 2022, let's send them home. Let's send them packing. Let's send them home. Let's put people in play that can do what we need them to do to keep this American experiment moving in the directions of what our founding fathers have decided or chose as a direction. We knew there were going to be some issues. And it's sad to have to say this, and I'll make this my last point before I close out here. This nation's leadership, primarily, again, Anglo males, were not ready for a black face. We got a black face. The nation it was. The nation's people were. Youth came out and voted. Whites came out and voted. Blacks came out and voted. Older individuals came out and voted. Asians came out and voted. Middle Eastern folks came out and voted. So the platform was filled for and right for a President Obama administration. But unfortunately, Anglo males, primarily those who have always seen their color on the letterheads, their names on the letterheads, their colors on the pictures and everything, they've always seen someone who represented or looked like them. And then when that shifted, this country did what we were hoping it wouldn't do, which it went out and it found the worst of us. It went out and found the worst of us, allowed it to lie, allowed it to spread misinformation, then allowed it to insurrect against our government. And now it's only doing matters even worse. So it found the worst of us to bring out the worst in us. 2022 is going to send a clear message if we want to. 2024 only puts us back on that trajectory of real recovery. And we're going to have to start doing it at some point, folks. My name is Tyrone Glover. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Susan, always striving and driving. Oh, I so appreciate you. Thank you, guys. But this is Tyrone Glover, your CEO, your dressed down CEO. I come to you every Tuesday to bring you information, knowledge, stuff that you can take with you to that next level. I want to thank you all. Please, if you want to reach out, you can reach me at leveragecreditrecovery@gmail.com. Please send me an email. You can reach me at the website, which is leveragecreditrecovery.com, or you can send us a text. Give us a call, 805-428-9424. I want to thank you all for making the time. If you're trying to find the time, you're never going to find the time. I appreciate those who have made the time to be with me today. Thank you so much. Everybody continue to social distance, wear that mask, get the vaccine, do your part. It's only going to help you create the situations that you want. Protect yourself, which in turn protects others. I appreciate you, everybody. Be safe, and until next time, peace, America.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward thinking. We We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.